Hey VC, what's up? It's me, yours truly. I am back to post a quick video here. This is going to be my response to James Griffith, his, how do you title it? Show Your First 20 questions thread slash tag that he put up. First and foremost, I want to say really thank you to James. He's been a subscriber to my channel for quite some time. He's been, someone who's commented on my channel for I don't know how long now. Always fun to share with him, always dropping, little nuggets of information and all this type of stuff. And just one of those guys that makes the VC the great place that it is. And he's really dedicated some time in his life, if you will, to actually watching my channel and paying attention to anything I have to say about anything. So, James, just want you to know it's greatly appreciated, my friend, and definitely want to jump on board your thread slash tag here. Not to mention, you had some really good stuff, especially with the whole first concept, because obviously it's making you go back to those memories and all that kind of stuff, and that's one of the places where even like my mother, I wasn't saying make fun of me, doesn't make fun of me, but just acknowledges a lot or finds it very odd how when we start talking about stuff from the past and especially going in like early childhood and things like that, uh, a vast majority of the memories that I share with her there is connected to some song, and so sometimes she kind of points that out, like, but it's just, yeah, that I guess that's part of what makes really all of us here in the VC, but just talking for myself, that's just kind of what makes music so impactful is that somehow it sears itself on my mind and sears itself on my soul and becomes such a significant like landmark in so many different events throughout the course of my life. Um, I was telling a friend about that recently when I was really, really young. Just kind of a quick story that's kind of encapsulates that. I used to live out in North Carolina, and then we moved back to Illinois. And the same, I'm really, really young. This is some of my most early memories, and a lot of them I don't even have. But I remember there was a swimming pool that used to be at this apartment complex we lived in for a while. And one of my few memories of being at that apartment complex was being up at that pool. And so when I had a friend that moved out there recently, and I drove back and went out there. And it's like, hey, we're passing through Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm gonna stop and see that old apartment building. And like you walk onto, and it's just like all these weird memories trying to rush back as you're seeing hills you used to run up and down. It's like, ooh. Then I remember the pool. I was like, let's go see if that pool is still up there. And we go up there, and the pool's not there anymore. Same setup, but they filled it in. So it's just like a courtyard now. And the guy came out and he was like, yeah, they didn't even take it out. They just put dirt in it. And I was like, yeah, because I remember these things. And your offices there used to be the pool house. And one of the only memories I have because of that being the pool house was I'm in there one day, and I've always loved pickles. It's one of my favorite foods. And they sold pickles, and there was like a bar and a dance floor type of area. And it was in the middle of the day, so nobody was there except the bartender, my dad, and I. And so he goes up to the bar, buys me the pickle, and I'm sitting there at the table just kind of waiting for him. And I remember the song "You Can Ring My Bell" is what was playing. And there was some lights on the dance floor, but nobody was in there. And it's like that's one of the only memories I have about that pool is vividly remembering where my dad was standing, where that bartender was, the chair that I was in, which direction I was facing diagonally towards the dance floor, and just you can ring my bell. And every time I hear that song, I'm right back in that pool house every single time. So yeah, just so many seared memories like that. So this whole first thing is really, really cool in that regard for me. Took me down a fun walk down memory lane, if you will. But yeah, let's just kind of jump right into it. Question number one. This is the first record you got by your favorite band or artist. And what I tried to do was pull them out on the actual formats that I got them on when they were my first. So not just to show everything vinyl. So the first album I ever got by my favorite band, which happens to be Godsmack, is this one right here, which I got on CD. It's their self-titled from 1998. Um, I was in the gym one day walking on the treadmill. The video for Whatever came on. I was like, that's kind of cool. Went out the next day and bought the CD. Listened to it, thought it was okay. Whatever was a cool song, but I didn't really get into the rest of the CD. About a year or two later, my girlfriend is doing like this birthday thing for me, and she's pulling out some different CDs that she wants to play and all of that. And Moon Baby starts playing, and I'm like, wait a minute, she's spinning these things from my CDs. I don't even recognize that song. And then whatever came on right after, I'm like, oh, that's that Godsmack CD. Still didn't care about him. But something happened around 2006 that I just became obsessed with them. And they're absolutely my favorite band to this day. Which even I find that weird, quite frankly. I mean, with the amount of music I've been exposed to just kind of in my life through the VC, all the legendary artists and, all that kind of stuff, just for Godsmack to creep in and be like the number one band for me, like even to me that doesn't make sense. But I freaking love them. I love everything they do. It's just awesome. But moving right along. So that's my first record by my favorite band. First debut album I ever owned. I think it would have to be EPMD's Strictly Business. When I picked up this cassette. Sorry, a lot of light there. Many years ago. But really up to this point, I think this was 88, somewhere around there. But really up to this point in time, I couldn't afford to buy a lot of, cassettes and stuff like that. So mainly my entire collection was comprised of just recording individual songs from cassettes that I borrowed from friends and off the radio, quite frankly. So, but this is the first like full album of a debut album that I remember ever purchasing. Because even all the Van Halen and Twisted Sister and AC/DC and everything I listened to back then, I was listening to 1984. I was listening to 5150. I was listening to, Who Made Who. I wasn't going back to their debut stuff. That wouldn't come until much further. So yeah, that was probably my first debut album. And every time I see that cover, it just makes me think like this and Van Halen's 5150. Those two albums pretty much ran my musical life for about 6 months, where 50% of everything I listened to came off of one of those two albums. All right, so that was the first debut album. Your first live album, another easy one. And that actually was on vinyl back at a time when I wasn't even collecting vinyl, but it was Kiss Alive 2. I've told this story a few times in the past in the VC. So the really quick version, I used to collect baseball cards with my friends. We would hop the city bus, drive downtown, go to the baseball card shops, take the city bus back home. One day we're waiting for the bus. We have 20 minutes before it comes. Hey, there's a record shop. Let's just go over there and just wander through and kill some time. So wish I was into records back then. But we're just kind of flipping through, not looking for anything. And that pops up. And I really don't know anything. I know who Kiss is, but I really don't know, especially in the old school Kiss whatsoever. Um, like maybe the only thing I knew at that point in time was like the song Heaven's on Fire. But I pull that up and I'm like, that's cool. Then I flip it over. I'm like, that's cool. And then of course I open that gatefold. I gotta have this. I have no idea what it is, but I gotta freaking have it. And then I bought it. So that was my first live album. I wasn't collecting any vinyl at the time. This was the only record that I owned for years at that point. This and the 12-inch single for the Iran's Land of Hunger. Only two vinyl records I owned really ever in childhood. So that was pretty awesome. That was my first live album. Question number 4, first greatest hits album. Again, didn't buy a lot of greatest hits stuff. I actually didn't buy a lot of stuff, period. I was just recording a lot of stuff. But the first greatest hits I can ever remember actually buying was this, which is also my first CD. I bought this and Green Day's Dookie on the same day. Those are the first two CDs I ever purchased. Which is why, as you can see here, sorry about the lighting there, guys. That's why the case is like this entire portion of the plastic is missing. It's all cracked and busted up. Because I just kind of refused to change or do anything to this, because this was the first CD I ever bought. So we're just gonna leave it kind of raw throughout the rest of its years. Even though, I mean, Madonna's been kind of pissing me off so much over the last few years, but still I haven't discarded her records because of it. But she's pushed me close. but yeah, so that's the first compilation or greatest hits I ever bought. And I mainly wanted that so bad because of the remix to Like a Prayer. I thought that was like the coolest remix ever on that album. Your first double album. Well, technically, it's going to be that Kiss Alive 2. So that doubles as an answer of that album. Question number 6. first legendary or classic album you ever owned? Again, not singles that I own, but actual full legendary classic album was Led Zeppelin 4 cassette. So that was definitely the first. Up until this point in time, again, my friend Matt, that I give so much credit to for where all of my rock and heavy metal love came from, he was introducing me to Queen, Twisted Sister, Scorpions, uh, you know, Def Leppard, Dawkins, like all those different bands, and some Led Zeppelin too. But this was the first full album, classic type of album I ever went out and actually got, was Led Zeppelin 4. Uh, Question number 7. The first record you ever received as a gift. I do believe it was Judas Priest, Stained Class. And I got this as a birthday gift. And it was really cool because I had just started to kind of collect vinyl records. And my girlfriend at the time came into town to visit. And she was like, yeah, well, let's just go to the record shop. Not your birthday, maybe buy you a record or something like that. And I'm like, oh, okay, that'd be nice. So we went out, and I bought like 2 or 3 records, but this was the first one I pulled off the shelf, was a Judas Priest Stained Class. And then I remember I thought it was kind of odd, and she was like, why don't we go out to the Guitar Center? I mean, they probably have like some neat music stuff there too. And I'm like, well, yeah, they're not gonna have any vinyl or anything. We can go look, and yeah, I guess it's music, and just sure, just something to do. We're hanging out. And then she gives me my birthday card while we're in there looking around, and I open it up, and it's like, happy birthday, so glad this. Pick out the guitar of your dreams. And I'm like, what? So she ended up buying me a Gibson SG that day as well. So that was a hell of a birthday right there. I didn't ask for anything and had no expectation that, anything. So that was definitely an out of the blue kind of heck of a surprise / birthday gift. But so that was the first. Question number 8. The first record you ever got which disappointed you. Simple. Booyah Tribe. Right there. New Funky Nation. And the reason this disappointed me, I flew down to Austin to visit my brother when he was living down there. And again, I'm still kind of younger now, maybe junior high, maybe starting going to early high school. So I'm still at the point where I don't have a ton of money to buy just any cassette or album that I want. So I've been seeing commercials for this album, and and in the commercial they kept kind of using the song Raid as the background music, and Raid is kind of a cool track, and I'm like, I gotta check that album out. And this is before YouTube, so you can't just go sample albums. There's no Spotify and blah blah blah. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go grab that album because the commercial looks cool, the guys look cool. I love that song Raid, and Raid is the only thing worth a damn on this entire album. The rest of it is just garbage. But I love Raid. I mean, I even had a 12-inch single for Raid. But yeah, I was very disappointed when, you only get to purchase so many cassettes, period. And when I committed to this one, and I was like, this piece of junk. But again, Raid is a good track, but I was definitely disappointed by that album big time overall. The first record you ever owned by an artist you would later go on to collect seriously. And that would have to be back when I bought the CD, which is Hendrix, The Ultimate Experience, which is kind of a greatest hits. I originally basically bought it for Hey Joe and All Along the Watchtower. I mean, I kind of knew Purple Haze, but I can't say it's like something I flocked to. But that was really the only Jimmy that I knew, and I bought it for that. And I was listening to it, and I would start getting into some other stuff on it, and I'm like, yeah, Jimmy's kind of cool. And then I was watching this documentary, and I can't remember what the documentary was on, but Neil Young was in there, and he started talking about Hendrix and talking about how there's nobody else is even in the room with that guy, is what he said. And then he said something that just really kind of made something click, where he's like, Jimmy had this magical way of bending a note, and he could make that note take you someplace really, really kind of away and give you this strange feeling, but then bring you right back to where you thought the note should be in the first place. That's why like he could bend, and I was like, holy cow, that totally makes sense. Like that's exactly what I'm hearing And then my interest in Hendrix just started to skyrocket. And I remember too, the girl I was dating at the time, I started listening to so much Jimmy and diving into his other stuff. And she was like, "Why do you listen to like this Jimmy stuff? Like, what's the? It's just a bunch of noise." And I was like, "No, man, Jimmy is just." And I'm trying to explain to her what's kind of so cool about it. And she made this comment like, "Oh, you're just saying that trying to be cool. You just want people to think you like Jimmy. Like, you're just kind of making that stuff up to sound cool." And I was like, "Done with you." And so it wasn't even maybe a few weeks later, her and I broke up. I was like, "Okay, I'm good. I'll keep Jimmy and leave you." Um, no, that wasn't the reason we broke up, but that's definitely kind of started going down the path of maybe what that was. Excuse me. So next question would be number 10. The record that first introduced you to a specific genre of music, and that would be this tape. Again, the actual copy that I had from back then. And this will be somewhere around my sophomore year in high school. This is Kenny G Live. I never listened to any jazz whatsoever, didn't really know any jazz, nothing at all. And one of my teammates, oddly, one of my black teammates, was listening to Kenny G Live in his room one day. And I'm like, "I kind of like that, dude. What is that?" "Kenny G, blah, blah, blah. Make me a tape." Made a tape. I started listening to it all the time. And pretty much everything that came in terms of me liking any type of jazz, I got to Cannonball Adderley, I got to Coltrane, I got to like all of that stuff. Even finally getting into Sade and stuff like that, all came from diving into this Kenny G Live. So that introduced me to jazz across the board there. Um, First record you home taped. I do believe it was this one here, which was Kingdom Come. Now, again, up until this point in time, I would borrow tapes from friends, make compilation tapes, mixtapes, and I would record a lot of stuff off the radio. Then one day I thought, this is what I'll do. I'll borrow the tape. I used to buy those 3-pack of tapes from a Kmart for 99 cents for 3 tapes with no covers. So you know how cheap they were. They just came in like a regular plastic bag. But you get 3 of them for 99 cents. And then I would borrow my friend's tapes, give the inserts to my dad, have him take them to work, and he would photocopy them and bring back a little black and white photocopy. And I would cut it out, bend it, put my little Walmart tape in there, and boom, I had this little horrible homemade tape. But I started doing that with just like tons of, I maybe had like 90 or 100 of them by the time it was all said and done. But I think this was the first one that I borrowed this tape from my friend Matt and did the cover and recorded the whole thing, which is of course 1998 Kingdom Comes. They had Let's Get It On or Get It On and a couple other really good songs on that album. Question number 12: the first record you ever bought on someone else's recommendation. Goes back to that Matt guy I keep talking about. He was the one that introduced me to so much stuff, and this was one that, again, talk about those memories. We're sitting at the lunch table, and he's like, "Dude, you got to buy that new Dawkins album." And I didn't really know Dawkins at the time. And he's like, "Yeah, man, it's this killer guitar intro, and I think it just kind of kicks in and blah blah." I was like, "Okay, I'll go check it out." He's like, "Here, I think I have it in my. Let me go grab my bag. I'll let you listen to some of it," which I'd already decided I was gonna buy it. And then he put it on, and Kiss of Death kicks in, and I'm just like, "Yep." So, and that was kind of the only song. I didn't listen to the whole song. I just kind of heard that intro. And so I went out and picked it up later that afternoon, and boom. So that was one of the many, many recommendations that came from my friend Matt. Because that's followed by, OU812. That's why I don't even get into that list. There's so many. The first records your parents disapproved of. That was a nice, fun thought to go back to. And since we were talking about parents and not necessarily their, of course I was listening to this on cassette at the time, but it would be Prince's Purple Rain. Now, when we were listening to music in the, excuse me, kind of mid to late 80s, that was before a lot of the, gangster rap stuff kind of started to come out. So that wasn't until the 90s. And by, 91, I was a teenager. So I'm in my car listening to stuff. So it didn't even come to the home. But even then, we all knew we're not going to blast stuff that has profanity or anything in it in our house where my mom could hear or whatever. Um, but more of the music was still clean at this point in time, 84. But one day we're sitting on the couch. I have my boom box, and my two younger brothers are sitting there, and I'm in like grade school, maybe junior high at the time, and they're in grade school. But the song "Darling Nikki" came on, and all three of us are singing along to it. And then that line came on where met her in a hotel lobby masturbating with a magazine. We didn't know what the hell masturbating meant, and my mom was sitting right there in the room. It's like, you guys need to shut up. You don't even know what you're talking about. You blah blah blah. So that's the first time I can ever remember getting scolded in any way, shape, or form about any music I was listening to, was us talking about Nikki masturbating with a magazine. So I guess that would have to be the first my parents disapproved of. Um, Next question, number 14. The first record that caused you to lose your mind. Easy. Africa Bambaataa, Planet Rock. And again, here I'm maybe third grade, fourth grade, somewhere in that ballpark. My cousin Theron, his mom invites me over for dinner. I go over and eat dinner. Afterwards, like, you guys want to listen to some records? There was two new records that I bought for Theron today. Those two records was a 45 single of Blondie's Rapture, and then the second one was a 12-inch single of Planet Rock by Africa Bambaataa. And man, he played that, and I mean, just, woo, like, what is this? And we played it about 8 or 9 times in a row until my mom said it was time for me to come home. And he was up dancing around, and I was standing behind the couch acting like I was playing like a synthesizer or keyboard every time we played it. And I mean, that song just blew me away. And I remember because he kept saying after we played it 2 or 3 times, let's play Rapture again. Let's play. Like, no, play Planet Rock again, man. Play Planet Rock again. And I just would not let up. And that album freaking blew my mind, man. Still does to this day when I listen to it. My total and complete introduction to what hip hop was going to be for me. Um, so question number 15, the first record you saw in someone else's collection. I'm thinking about actual vinyl record. The first video I ever made here on YouTube, which was long before the VC was ever even a thing, I made it because when I first started collecting vinyl, I went to YouTube to find other videos of people talking about vinyl, and there wasn't. There were only two other guys that had made any videos whatsoever, and it was like one or two each. But one of the guys in one of those videos, the first one I remember seeing was he was showing a Nirvana, his Nirvana collection, and he showed In Utero. So I think that's probably technically, from the time I started collecting vinyl, the first album I ever saw in anyone else's collection. Let's see. 16, the first record you had difficulty tracking down. There's always been a few of those over the years, but this is the one I remember giving me the most grief. Which is, and again, I'm sorry about the light. You can't really see that there. Terry Reid, Seeds of Memory. Was it the Devil's Rejects? Zombie used this song in there, which was in a really, really cool, the title track, Seed of Memory. And I just thought it was just a fantastic track. And found out it was pressed on vinyl, but then trying to locate one just became, like, impossible. It was a good 3 or 4 year search. And then I was out at a conference in DC and stumbled into this just little old record shop. Go down these steps like you're going into a dungeon, and little bitty shop, stuff not really organized. One really strange skinny dude with a really long white beard, and just digging through just these piles, and boom, it just popped up. And I think he only had like $7 or $8 on it. And I was like, yes, finally got this freaking record. But make sure you check out that song if you're not familiar with it, Seed of Memory by Terry Reid. It is a fantastic track. Like I said, I paid $7 or $8 for it, 1976 pressing, and this thing's going for like $50 now, which is pretty awesome. But that was not an easy one to come across. Um, Question number, what we're on, 17. The first record you bought a second copy of. I do believe that would be Metallica's Master of Puppets. So I got in collecting for a while. I really was trying to get all the different pressings from Metallica. So I was doing the Warner Brothers, the Elektra, trying to get. I had a couple of Megaforce pressings, the 45 RPM pressings, and all of that. So I think that's when I first started buying any doubles of stuff that I had. So that would be that one. Your first blind buy. I actually decided to do cassette and vinyl on that. Because again, back when the dollars weren't just flowing and you had to be very picky, a blind buy was a huge risk, and you had no YouTube to go to check things out first. This was, I think, the first cassette blind buy I can remember ever picking up. A Techmaster PEB bass computer. Just kind of one of those weird compilations, and something about it just seemed kind of cool. And we were all about the boom back then, and something just said like, okay, just screw it, just give it a try. I have no idea what that is, but it caught my attention back then for whatever reason. So I think that was the first cassette blind buy I ever had. And then album-wise, actual vinyl, This Sweet was my first blind buy. And actually, this is just the first one that I remember because I know there was a ton of blind buys on this day. One of my best digging stories ever. Um, in Kansas City, there was a store owner who had passed away. That was kind of a horrible thing, and his family didn't want to continue the business. So I think he had two different locations. So between inventory and then overstock and everything that he had like 275,000 records. And so what the family decided to do was they rented out a huge storage area, or these two storage rooms, and basically filled up all these boxes on tables laid out in rows. And they opened the door at 9 a.m. Saturday morning. Every record in here is $1. You guys have fun. There's like 100 of us waiting outside to get in, and it was more than enough room where 100 people in there was not even a crowd whatsoever. They give you these little tickets to where when you start getting a handful, you could take them and put them in cubbies that people were holding behind the counter, if you will. And then you just have your ticket number. And when you're done, you just come claim everything that you put back there. So you get a bunch, take them, get a bunch. And so this was, from what I recall, the first blind buy that I pulled out of there because I didn't know about Sweet at the time. And which ended up being actually a great one, actually. Getting this for only $1, in pretty great condition. But there was a ton of blind buys I picked up that day. So at that point, I probably had about 75 records, maybe 100 records in my collection at the time. And I think that first Saturday I went there, I came home with 175 records. And that wasn't all of them. So after a weekend, after a Saturday, Sunday, then they would spend that week filling up all the holes. No organization, no alphabetizing, no markers for artists. They would just grab records and fill the holes back up. We're doing it again next Saturday. And so there was 4 weekends in a row where I went up there, and I think I got close to 300 records over the course of those 4 weekends for $300. I mean, and some phenomenal things, some stuff that are grails in my collection now. It was just perfect timing. But so first blind buy is right there. All right, we're almost a 30-minute mark. The first record you bought after becoming involved in the vinyl community. Well, considering the vinyl community, well, this is what I did. I picked the first album I bought. I remember buying after I made my first video, because it wasn't for quite some time until the vinyl community actually came around. But I believe this was the first album I bought after making my first ever video, which is Machine Head, The Blackening. Really, really cool piece from 2007. This is the 2007 US Canada pressing. Really, really awesome metal album. And not sure how I did it. I mean, I do have the CD, but I have kept it sealed the entire time. I never opened it, which I'm kind of glad I didn't now. But really cool. I mean, I think I bought this for like $19 at the time, or $18.99, something like that. And sealed copies going for over $100 on Discogs now, so that's pretty cool. But yeah. And then last question, the first record you bought mail order, actually doubling up again, because I do believe it was a Metallica Master of Puppets. It's when I first really, after that trip up to Kansas City I was just telling you about, when I really got in, that really sparked my craze in vinyl. What I thought was, I'm not going to collect CDs anymore. I'm just going to collect only vinyl. And I've been collecting CDs for quite a number of years up to that point. So I started selling all of my CDs on eBay, and my PayPal account was building up so much, I just started ordering records left and right. I mean, because just it didn't cost me any money. I was just ordering records. So I put up this dry erase board beside my computer so I could keep track of all the different things I had ordered and where they were coming from. So I wouldn't be doubling up or knowing. I just remember like Metallica being at the very, Master of Puppets being at the very top of that list. And I would check it off when it came in, because it was like so much in a matter of just a few weeks. I couldn't even keep track of all the stuff that I had ordered. And then I decided I want to collect CDs, and I was like shooting myself in the foot for selling off like 150 of just some great CDs I should not have sold. But anyway, so sorry about the long ramble there, guys, but sometimes I get to rolling with these old stories and I can't stop. So yeah, again, James, great thread, man. Had a fun time thinking about those back memories. And as always, VC, let me know what you think, and we will talk to you guys soon. All right, take care.